And good morning, raspy voice and all. I'm not tripping. Hopefully, the volume comes through well enough. There's not much I'm going to do to improve the audio of this live stream on this one. It's Tuesday, 425, 5 days after 420. And so I'm hoping people have calmed down just a little bit. Those who understand and celebrate 420 and all of its grand festivities. B1 Brother Moses here to render my early morning salute. And I got time today, so I put together a nice little morning blend of content. This is my channel, and I'm going to talk my shit just a little bit. So, you know me, I'm long-winded. I talk to the truck drivers, to the people who got a little time. I've grifted enough to understand a little bit, just to be dangerous enough to talk enough shit to then tell my big bro, yeah, they ready. They ready now, because if they'll talk shit to the little bro, then finally they'll man up and talk some real shit, and they'll be ready to have them intellectual debates about the topics that need to be addressed. And so the morning blend is for those who understand. You know, there's the sativa, there's the indica, and the sativa does something different than the indica. It just does. And the argument is, well, one of them is medicine. No, they don't say it's medicine. They try to say it's therapy or therapeutic. Some people, they want to argue. That's the argument, whether or not cannabis is medicinal, right? And so you got some states that say yeah, and you got some states that say no. But the morning blend, well, whichever side you land on, however you like your blend, you're going to get a little bit of that right now. Today's topic, though, is going to center around 5 days later. Not just as an analogy, but 5 days later. Because sometimes we got to give people some time to let things process. Shit said, social media and offline, and even in real life. And in dealing with our human relationships, sometimes time is the best remedy. So 5 days later, as an undergirding theme, and it's been about 2, maybe 3 minutes in so far, so I'm going to give my B1 salutes. Jada salute, Shay Show salute, Wisdom Review salute. And then I'm going to get into just a little bit. Now, before I get into the mess, I do want to say 425 is a good day because it's Doc Jenkins' birthday. It's my wife's birthday. And so while she does maintain her life, and then after work, she is a working woman. Yes, she has earned her doctorate, and she does have a life that she lives separate from being my wife. Her birthday is something that she does celebrate, and she would like to celebrate a little bit later. And so if you have any contributions on what you think would be a great way to celebrate Doc Jenkins, I would welcome any of those suggestions in the chat or in the replay, or in the, they have the little comment section below. So with the house business in order, happy birthday to wifey if she checks the stream later. And then we have a great day planned. Doc Jenkins, we gonna do something. Any suggestions would be welcome. Morning blend, 5 days later. We're gonna give some people some time to process. Others do not need time to process what the hell just happened. I heard Taz the Goat say op about Q Butter. And if that dude is an op, then he would happen to be my favorite op then, if that's the case. Now, I'm normally not so petty, but on MySpace, I do know that there is a morning blend. Those who do like to be, coddled through conversations. And then there's those who like, man, get to the fucking point. So happy birthday, Doc Jenkins. She is in the education ecosystem. What she does is on a grander scale. But again, I am a Black American. My wife can't be the example for Pan-Africanists. I served my country, so I would not be an example for pro-quack who is Black only. I wouldn't be an example for them because I'm not anti-white. I said we have work to do in upholding our end of the bargain. And so, with that being said, the Pan-Africanist, if he would be an op, would happen to be one of my favorite ops. And that is by extension and by proxy with who he brought onto his board, Sister Irene. She cold. She cold. And she is another one who went into spaces where there were men expressing hostile views that were damaging to the image of the Black male in general and on a Pan-African or global scale. There are very few federally recognized we are Native arguments that are on the table. The Gullah Geechee is indisputable in their claim to have continued to fight for their right to exist in America and exist free, insulated, or isolated. So there is no dispute there. None. She could choose to divest. She could choose to invest. She can go where she go and have every executive privilege and courtesy by proxy. And she shouldn't have to fight so hard. Yesterday, 424, I heard a strong, light-skinned sister who gets a lot of praise across Black YouTube, Sister Michi X. And it was another episode. She's not against, showing her real raw thuggish emotion, the thuggish emotion, the tears. And it again reinforced the message that women should not have to fight so damn hard. Especially when they're dutiful and going into what should have been male-dominant spaces, male-dominated industries, male-dominated politics, soliciting support from corporations that are still white male-dominated spaces, bringing the resources that so many across the globe would say, oh, Americans are spoiled, but to get just eyes on the prize for Black people. And her event, where she featured so many activists, she had to tongue-in-cheek say, because they are doing the work, while she was the one crying. I said, yeah, you can't make this shit up. You can't. 5 days of processing something like that are necessary. 5 days. 5 days are necessary to process that type of rejection. Five days. That would be a minimum recommendation for the affirming self-care, just to think that she can recover and get back to business when dealing with Nakers. It's a punishing, grueling task when you featured so much of the Black experience, just to have those who you featured and man, I don't know all the back end work that goes into it on her end. I'm not an East Coast person. Dealing with the East Coast Negro and their assimilated view is a different task than dealing with the West Coast Negro. We can understand that from the lens of looking at the tragic mulattoes experience of the 19th. And when I say the tragic mulattoes, I am referring to Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Booker T. Washington in all extension. Those three had a tragic curse of wanting to do so much more for the Negro, to the extent of arming their own sons. Not just recruiting for what was the gender war, but arming their son. That would be Frederick Douglass. And so we have these experiences that have ripped across the East Coast that impacted the East Coast a hell of a lot different. East and west of the Mississippi, our experience was just a bit different. The further we may have gotten from such strict, what we call colonial rule, and the acceptance of that colonial rule. If the soldiers fought your families west, it seems to be an entirely different attitude than if the soldiers or the men in your family decided to remain in the South. And if your family remained in the South and when I say the South, that's a parallel. The Virginia, if you were still below the West Virginia and you were still the Appalachians and none of that mountain range, and you can get to the Mississippi, and you never made it, the Ohio River, you never made it to the Indiana, you never made it to any other territory besides the South for generations of men. And now that we've been able to bear witness to a East Coast Naker versus a West Coast Naker, and these struggles that we have all the way in between the Midwest, there's intersections of Blackness that we are understanding about each other. We can co-opt each other's language and start to understand, what does that mean when one says the mud? And they got it out the mud. What does that mean in a place that had been urban developed a long time ago? Chicago, the Cabrini Green way of thinking about it. The East Coast, or the revolt way of thinking about it. Let's put it back on P. Diddy if we like celebrity worship. Because once giving the image of Black men, we see where it's gone. There was a shiny suit, and then there was this chill gangster cannabis club of a West Coast type attitude. This chill gangster, I know I couldn't be a gangster. I lived and experienced where the real gangs, the red and blues, were since like the 80s in my own lifetime. But to take it back to the 20s and Garveyism and its clash of ideas, Harlem's Renaissance versus California's liberation or the gold. California, it seems to have had to accept this Chinese paradigm or this Oriental positioning. And after the Oriental, it was we've won these wars with Mexico and these folks. So what happens in the 1890s, and what happens when the water wars start ending? Whose culture and whose heritage are we preserving when we continue to say African? In my Black experience, yes, I've learned a little bit enough to be dangerous, but my entire family story and who I would have to omit, man, the further west we go, I'll say it this way then, the further west we go, the younger we are. The further west we go, the younger we are. Those generations are younger and younger, but it's more and more of us that have been westernized. Our Southern roots or our Southern heritage, as it may have been inclined to been a more hospitable, I would say, more open to receiving what Black encompasses. When I went to Louisiana, for example, the Louisiana Negro was right on the line of the Mississippi. And by the time I learned about the Louisiana experience, which would be my father's generation, and my father's generation then incorporates his father, so my grandfather, and being able to inquire about my actual grandfather and the time my dad spent with him. Well, that's Louisiana and Mississippi. Being able to inquire deeper back than my father's 50s, which means his father was them 30s and 40s. And so the granddad then, that's getting us back into the 19th century. It had to have been about 2 weeks ago. After following up on a conversation with Pops, Pops told me exactly who I could refer to in his family to learn about the older generation. It's essential to have chronology because similar to that experience, my mom's side of the family is the Oklahoma or the Indian Territory coupling that happened to bring us west more permanently and expand our entire family tree to include my grandmama's family. And when I say they get younger when we come west, that was only because my father's DNA was less reliable as a source than mitochondrial DNA. If you talk to anybody who hasn't attempted to do the research, they will rely on outside sources that are unverifiable. When they finally do get back to the verifiable sources, for those folks who do believe in where were they born, what year were they born, were there any addresses, did they attend a church, did they work, where did they work, do you remember who they worked for, what year did they start working, when did they have that child? So they had that child, and when you can finally start having those conversations, that ancestral leaf starts making a hell of a lot more sense. But until then, yeah, even the ancestry.com argument doesn't work because the father's arguments fall short. I'll give you another personalized example of why they were so young. Grandfather's generation, when they situated in Louisiana, was the generation with 13 children. Father's generation, 3 children, 2 biological, 1 adopted. There is a vast difference between managing a community of 13 children as a single household type man versus being a young man of our generation who will have 13 children in the entire community, not under his household. I got to fire up my morning blend. There is a stark contrast. And now that they are younger and dumber, they believe that having 7 children is a sign of masculinity, although those 7 children would be in the community and not under their household. It's just different. And so I took my father on his word. He told me who exactly I could speak to in the family. He said that it was the mitochondrial DNA. I went and I spoke with my great aunt, Sheila, and she was able to give me the entire bloodline that goes back beyond my father and his father. Not just him, but even the other names that are associated. And I won't put all of that out, but sheesh. So now that my brain is actually permanently able to fix itself on the fact of these arguments being, yes, in your family there were soldiers who decided that their deployment would send them clear across America. I learned in my own family who those soldiers were. Just a few. I know my dad was one. Of course, I followed in his line as my older brother did as well. I learned about those who chose the cloth. I learned about the men in the family who chose the streets. I'm 40. Because my father was one who chose the military, that was the separation from the South. But that didn't happen until in his life, which would have been the 60s, late 60s for him to have made that decision that he was willing to leave the South. Early 70s when he finally left. And I don't know exactly what it's going to take to help other people leave the South or the Southern mentality where masculinity is still defined in this grand concept of the community village. And the man being at the head of the totem pole is the man who has the most sons. That mentality has long since become a detriment to the Black community because those sons and those daughters, well, they need their dad in the same home. This argument that keeps being avoided is that because the father left all of those other women who had his children to the community, and he chose one family with one or two children, and maybe even a child of hers, that man is under the microscope. If all of his other children and the women who he had children with are left without him, then under whose household do they fall? And for how many generations should they have to fall under the care of other communities? Loving v. Virginia, or this 60s, and this expansion to include biracials as a separate and distinct culture and heritage, I still liken to the efforts of the NAACP and the HBCUs, the W.E.B. Du Bois, and the Booker T. Washingtons. Because those men, for every intent and purpose They claimed their whiteness like Frederick Douglass. They are the New Orleans, Louisiana, Plessy Ferguson type argument manifested with its legality in America. The Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, well, that's still just a testament to the Cooley marriage. And this marriage between California and the Nacre and the Chinese, and this Harlem Negro and its true LGBTQ representation. Well, this is divided by the Mississippi. Our experience across the way, it's ours. We've personalized it. And today I heard the African diaspora guy want to get up and say, well, we need to keep studying you Negroes. And so it continues to perpetuate this Garveyism where these outside influences want to have more and more access to ridicule the Black experience while simultaneously co-opting the Black experience and wedding this Black experience to the diaspora, to the benefit of the diaspora, while laughing at the same Black man who gets ridiculed for being what they want to study. Got to fire up my morning blend. You want to study good Black fathers. Because your argument is that if we had more good Black fathers, those good Black fathers could then be identified to become mentors .5 days. When Michi X cried yesterday, it's because after having identified an entire page of Black activists, days worth of festivities, and done the legwork behind the scenes to bring together all of what they were asking for, her experience with these same Nacres brought her to tears in a very public space. Shame, regret, humiliation. And so my rebuttal to these Omar Johnson and HR 40-ish perspectives that keep saying we need to study Black men to laugh at. Why do you think Oprah put out damn D Wade? We are laughing at them niggas. What more do you want us to do? They had their good laugh at B1 Brother Moses. They've had great laughs at Simp Man 35. They've had great laughs at Moo. They've had great laughs at T. Will. Brother George Macon advocates for mentorships. And simultaneously, he became a mentor to the young men in the community that surround his son's everyday life. So by extension of the love that he had for his wife, he decided that he would partner with whatever political representation are available in his local municipality. It's a very territorial game when you start playing politics. Politics is an open admission with your name, address, social security number. And for him to make himself a primary source, he would get ridiculed. And the ridicule, while it seems personal, is up for debate. This is social media. The ridicule, like always or often, does cover what your message is as a Black man. We need more mentors. We need more mentors. When essentially you are being a primary representation of we need more fathers. We need more fathers. To some, they cannot see that there is a Mississippi River between an ideology that says we need more mentors, and we need you to be the father of your child. Many people would not see the Ohio River that diverts away from the very core principles that we are standing on when you start making it about the Black woman, single mother, who delivered the child of said man, who is now saying we need more mentors while being a representation of Black fatherhood. No, nigga, you jumped across the Mississippi and you try to swim yourself back across with a rope so that you can then jump across the Mississippi, swim across with a rope, jump across, grab wood, swim across, jump across, swim across, and build a bridge over this Mississippi. But there is still a river to get over if you're asking for Black men to be fathers or you're asking for more mentors. One would leave the Black man comfortable with his decision and 2 kids and maybe the 1 child. And I might need 5 days to process this after I deliver this content. The other would allow the man to have 13 children in the community while he's only head of household of 1. And the rest of his children are the single mothers that they would spend an eternity on social media ridiculing the Black woman, or we need to hold the Black woman accountable. No, nigga. We need more mentors. No, nigga. You stand on the principle of fatherhood, and then we start building these bridges. And so he jumps back in the water and then he comes back across. He jumps back. But you got to get across the Mississippi to understand the difference. There are many men who have co-opted this Black and they can't escape Black. And so they left the woman and the child. And now I'm timing myself and me off the screen. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed the Ramos Bill AB 1314, authored by Assembly Member James C. Ramos, to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people, to build a better, stronger, and more just state, to aid law enforcement with iRapid Communications Advisory. California launching Feather Alert system for missing Indigenous people in what year? 2023. And the question is, how will the feather alert system work in 2023? In case you missed this across social media, when Michi X delivers smackdowns on dumbasses and disrespect for how they treated Black women, it does get 1.8 live. It's stretched across ideologies that we've associated many Black people with. This ain't me talking shit. This is body bag receipts. They made sis cry. And while we would want to coddle the relationship between Taz and another Black man, Q Butter, if Q Butter is an op, then he just so happens to be my favorite op. Because building bridges, well, I know a little bit about building bridges. California Secretary of State says, well, they can lead the nation in Black reparations, in Indigenous reparations, in Jamaican reparations, in Native American reparations, in Chinese reparations, in Italian reparations, in Holocaust reparations. No, nigga, this shit says California Secretary of State says the state can lead the nation in Black reparations. February 2023. $200,000 miles on the dashboard. Plan B failed. The Naker ran and got a passport. When I was working on this slide, I was just trying to think through how I really feel about Cabrini Green research. And the way I feel about Cabrini Green research, which to me is when Black men co-opt what Black women have been working towards for a while, which is basic housing, things like that, getting HUD, housing, urban development, and getting actual tangibles like a home. You know, when those type of real political decisions are being made and it's 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, not just dollars per home, but people whose lives are going to be impacted by those decisions. I didn't know how to actually address it with research. I know what Cabrini Green is and was, how it was funded. And by the time Nakers got to move in and out, it was just something different. I know about the Chicago political machine and how hard it was. I don't disregard the Harlem Renaissance lightly when I tell you of how accommodating it has been. For the Madam C.J. Walker community to grow, thrive, and flourish. People like Charles Baldwin had to have a space where they could create. And Hollywood is no different. A lot of people attribute true liberalism to California. I get it. I understand. The capital, California, seems to be as strong as New York. It's not, But okay, I get it. It would almost be as though people would want to assume Texas is stronger than Massachusetts. Now, I know the fighting Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee has been down there holding it down, writing actual legislation that says white supremacy is the problem. And there are a lot of southern states and other states that will not put language that is that direct out there. So how many generations will it take again? What we typically see in the conscious community is a love of the Greek, so much so that they ridicule the Boule unfairly, in my opinion. There are many Boule who are Black as far back goes. And they don't need another study to tell the international community that they are Black. They just don't. They never needed Jesse Jackson to give them African. Again, having a conversation with Miss Sheila in my own family, who is the woman who my dad told me to speak with, because the mitochondrial DNA was stronger than even taking an Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com can help you get a number of leaves that you're then supposed to investigate. And the only way that you're able to investigate fact from fiction And so this is how we differentiate fact from fiction. There are facts, and then there's fiction. When I look at this fiction, it's just what's being written down. When they say missing indigenous people, some people should feel a certain way about this. Because in our space, we know that this fight is beyond just what we can exercise politically, what gets written down. I want to show my work. Let me get me off the screen. The next phase of Black parenting where I am. Hike for Healing, Empowered 360, my wife's business, salute. Buckeye, Arizona, Buckeye 2040 was the last thing that I told you. If you rock with me, you wanted to know where the actual opportunities are, so I told you. I'll tell you a little bit about Hike for Healing. But before I do that, what the actual parenting work looks like, there's a deadline that I have to help my son, not this year, but I'm showing what an opportunity looks like. He's a part of an association, FBLA. When he becomes a senior, they will have a senior capstone project. It's worth $5,000 for the grand prize. These are the types of opportunities that involved active Black fathers are responsible for. It gives a very clear actual pathway for him to be able to take advantage of this real opportunity. A capstone award has to be approved through this process. There is a competitive review, and it clearly states what they want. a 3-minute summary video, and a 2-page executive summary. That's it. If less than 15 entries are received, they can eliminate their preliminary round, because often these type of opportunities do not get pushed. I didn't hear what happened. I heard from Michi X what happened at the Black Agenda event, and it broke my heart, which again, it only made me want to get back to the information even more. If she shouldn't have to fight so hard, then where are the Black men who will actually put out the information? And so I'm going to give a little bit, but that's going to come with a morning blend. I rant. Everything ain't going to be relevant to everybody, and that's okay with me now. Morning blend. And so they also made available, as you've heard me talk about what my son does, they made available different actual assets. These are digital assets because it's a part of a organization, a recognized organization. The digital assets for the parents are the use of their trademarked Future Business Leaders of America and their emblems, logos, and such. Actual organization, schools, who's your contact person, the role for the chapter, which division, and how do you leverage said opportunities? So in his space, being able to work with QR codes or technology, identify where are the volunteer opportunities in the community, print it, and give it to his advisor so that the students who are looking for volunteer opportunities at his school have access to places where they can volunteer, is his capstone project. Now, I clicked through them loud, but he automates that process to where those lines that dropped, that created that image, this image, a cartoon image, is called gamification. On a video screen, next to the flyer that's available, it scrolls so that the lines that we're dropping for volunteer opportunity create said cartoon image. His video is how did I learn to tie a tie left-handed? The survey that he runs are for students who learn how to tie a tie. After watching said video, the survey or the poll question is, did the person learn to tie a tie? There's a 50-50 chance. It's Future Business Leaders of America. It's innovative because he incorporates technology with the QR code, and the video had to have been less than 2 minutes anyway. And his research is done through the survey link to verify what he does. Again, they make the templates available. They'll give the little pins. They'll give color schematics. What problem was identified? For him, it was teaching folks how to tie a tie when they're left-handed. But for others, it was just learning how to tie a tie, because interview prep does involve wearing a tie. And if your job is to help young men do better at interviews, that's what I'm talking about right there. Salute. Him teaching them how to tie ties, as well as the QR codes on the screen were linking to volunteer opportunities for future business leaders of America. Those students who were looking for opportunities to volunteer in the community. As a dad, it's up to me to find the businesses that are willing to partner and let him put that QR code on the board. Hey, these are the 4 businesses that will accept high school students as volunteers. The inspiration behind the problem. Well, for him, it was gamification. And I told him he was spending too much time on those games just to be playing games. And even though he was good at playing games, there was other value that he could have as a content creator. How did he identify his customer? They also like playing similar games. How does the student use design thinking principles to empathize with their customers? Well, for them, it was just tying a tie. And so getting, how do I tie a tie? The rabbit goes down and around. That was just the simple part for me making the video. For him putting himself in it and shooting that video, well, that's different. But to use design thinking principles, it was, well, we need it to be in a digital format, as well as we need it under 3 minutes. 2 minutes, really. And then the clips are simple. And it has to be short, sweet, and to the point. Here's how you tie a tie. So is the problem statement clearly defined? Yes, in order to help more young or more students. And he has, for a science project or a study experiment, capstone project, they identify what is the age group. For them, it's 15, 16, 17. By the time they're 18, many of them are working, they're making a decision whether they're going to school or into a more permanent workforce role. And then, yes, there are some who go to the military. My daughter, on the other hand, she's entrepreneurship driven. Trying to assign her a caseworker, somebody to tell her what to do, would only serve to stifle her creativity and drive her more towards being unhappy with the outcomes. When she gets more comfortable allowing people to give their insight, then maybe we can talk about how do you do interview preparation? How do you get ready for, future business interactions? But she has already identified that she wanted to be a CEO, and not just of a small company. She said it was Coca-Cola, for that matter. Coca-Cola being the largest, at one point, they might still be the largest provider of employment to South Africa, the country, being a primary employer and opportunist, driver of opportunities in spaces like Atlanta and outside. Hey, man, so 5 whole days to process. She shouldn't have to fight so hard. I've discussed the project plan. Key milestones would be rarely simple. Fundraising, he already does. Expenses and financial management tactics, those are simple fixes because those are skill-based. Overall, how did he manage his project? I give him an A. Cabrini Green. For me to understand Cabrini Greens, I had to talk to an elder who understood New Havisha, CV Circle, the projects that were erected more closer to home in Sacramento. I had to understand what it took to develop CV Circle, New Havisha, or what we considered the projects. Because in my lifetime, I saw the development of what became North Avenue apartment complex, and I understood what it meant for those families who lived in like Shade Tree Apartments or whatever the name of the apartment complexes that housed a lot of us. Me, on the other hand, my mama's family, my grandmama, and her mama owned homes. My wife's side of the family, her grandmother, multiple homes. Because the reality was, when it came to keeping the kids in one household the best they could, that was Big Mama. The homes I lived in were the collecting points, or what they called the melting pot of our entire family. And so it seemed. As a kid, you don't know these things. You just see the uncles, you see the cousins. You get all the insight. They tell you to go up to Mama Marks Park. They tell you to go to Hagenwood Park. They tell you to get the hell out of the house and go do something, and you go off. In one community, I think we had at one point, let me see, within our own family in Del Paso Heights, there had to have been 15 houses. 15 houses in one family. And in each of those homes, 7 kids would be normal. And yeah, they were your cousins. Sometimes they weren't even cousins. To be honest, to keep it a whole buck, the big mamas in the community, I got to give an additional love. And see, this is why when men deal with men issues, I don't check another man on who he feels he wants to check. In the intellectual debate space, people would say, O'Shea Duke Jackson, a nigga from the Heights, who does not have any kids and has never been married and has always considered himself, I don't know if it was an incel or a MGTOW. At the very least, he considered himself heterosexual, to say the least, which is for them saying the most. His position would have perpetual single men into their 40s still chasing 20s. Saying the same things that got, oh, I got to do that one. I got to share this screen. Because when I saw this shit, I said, man, you definitely can't make this shit up. Yeah, I got to give you one now. You earned this one. As this processes, because some people going to need 5 days to process it. This Pan-African, this everybody gets to co-opt blackness, this, and what that means for us. This is a list of petitioners by state. What happened in 2011. And I wonder, will it allow me to zoom in? I don't think it will give me the ability to zoom all the way in and get to the actual meat of it. Where is it sharing it from? I see it on the screen. On it, it's by state. Goes up to Alaska. Arizona tried to get them in. Acknowledgement effective date. I need to be able to zoom on in on that. Where is that? It's in the full screen, but I want it full. This says edit layout. I can add a whole nother item with a dynamic grid? What? Oh man, they done added some new shit to the StreamYard. Oh shit. Oh yeah. I wonder, okay, y'all got me all the way fucked up. Hold on. See, I knew they started adding some new shit, but I didn't know it was gonna look like that. Let's go. I'm starting to take brand names off, take off that Powered by StreamYard logo. I didn't even know they started adding that. See, now that we can start getting back to the official, oh yeah. Yeah, put the dog head on that boy. Put the dog head on all the way up to Alaska. There are so many petitioners. And I'm going to give y'all some facts because there are a lot of people who don't want to deal in facts. So I'm going to give y'all some facts. Let me see. Can I add a third? This bad boy say add a third. Okay. Oh, those is camera slots. That's what it's saying. Yeah, take that off. Yeah, get those off. This card, take that off. I'm starting to learn. I got distracted because I'm trying to get to the one. I can change the slide, but I can't zoom in from this lens. And so until I'm able to actually find that one, it's been 1 hour. You rocking with B1 Brother Moses. This is your morning blend, man. Thanks and rock. Hey, man, we got morning blend, which is there's some on the left and there's some on the right. I'm going to stand on this black first principle and I'm going to show you why. Here's another receipt. I've given you some good receipts on the board to make your claim. Letter of intent, petition to file. California had a lot of letters of intent, petitions to file. They had some that had been recognized, many that were never recognized. They just sat on the board, but the letter of intent was filed at a certain date. California put a lot of them on the board. I need to be able to zoom in on that right there, though. And because I can't zoom in, it's not going to do us the general purpose that I need to show you when we start looking at what I wanted to show you was the Yamasee Nation of Moorish Cherokee and what actually starts happening once they've drifted so far away and they've studied so much that they just try to lift them. They just list all of them. They write it down and it becomes fiction. It was fact when it was one family member saying it. But once you co-opt and put all of them in there, and now you're trying to stand on you are one tribe of all of those, Yamasee, Cherokee, Moorish, in one application, all of that. Man, they determined that application was not eligible a long ass time ago. They really did. But they petitioned, though. They show petition. Let me get to that slide, man. If I can figure out how to zoom in on that slide, I'll tell you what the problem is. Because also on that list, there are quite a few that have been recognized. They've been recognized. And there are a lot of people who make claims to be from certain tribes or of certain lineage, of certain clans, bands as they used to be called. But they're not really from those bands. And even if they found somebody that is, they wouldn't know how to celebrate and protect that person anyway. And thus our dilemma becomes, we come to social media, and there are actual good fathers that have stood on principles of be a good father. Just like there are good mentors who would be good representations of mentors. And there is also a Mississippi River in between an understanding of fathers and mentors and what we need right now to fix the Black community. If your position is that Black men need to be better fathers, I'm going to start saying, yeah, tell me about that. If your position goes towards, and Black men need mentors, I might say, yeah, tell me more about that. Understand at some point, there are men who have crossed the Mississippi, came back, crossed the Mississippi, came back, crossed the Mississippi and came back to build those very bridges. And you might not know a real one if you saw one. That same one would get the ridicule. That same one would get jokes and jokes and jokes about him in every effort to be a mentor. Do you actually want to see good Black fathers? I would argue that if you try to run another study, the answer is likely to yield an overwhelming, articulable, I'll make my own word, no. They don't want to see good fathers. We want to see celebrities worshipped. Even if the celebrities would not even consider themselves good fathers. We would rather see them pedestalized than to actually see a good father. And so this Harlem argument, you don't got to like it. To do better by the Madam C.J. Walker community. And Madam C.J. Walker, in all of her elegance and what she brought to the table by partnering with so many of the Cabrinis, let me ask you this. When Chicago and Harlem started opening up their doors to migrating Southern Black families, where else were these Southern Black families supposed to live? If they were to listen to Garvey and get on the boat, they would have done the O'Shea Duke Jackson. And they would be somewhere in Uganda, Kenya. And while I won't say that that's a mud hut, I can let him tell you the conditions of living in Uganda. But the Madam C.J. Walker community, if you ask me, New York, Harlem, Chicago, St. Louis had to open its arms to a Southern Negro. It gets dangerous. It gets very dangerous if you can have the conversation that says, well, yeah, that's just 2 or 3 generations. Because if you go back to the 1820s, which I admittedly would have to listen to the Census Bureau even to get to 1830, I would have to listen these conversations start to shake at the core of lineage and bloodline and reparations. I'm not going against what my mama has already proven and what her mother has already proven and what her mother have already proven. And even doing the research personally, that line said, well, you're going to have to follow the mitochondrial DNA if you want to get even into 1870. If you want any information about the living family members, this is my story. It ain't everybody's story. Salute my wifey. Salute my morning blend. Because if you want any information about an enslaved nigga in your family that just may or may not have come from fucking Africa, even to get that far back, you're going to have to ask the women. And so I did. We are yet to get to the African. We are yet to get to a boat. There's big lists. We know grave sites, cemeteries, burial plots, best estimates for birth days. In many cases, even asking a tragic mulatto, they would only tell you a best guess on when they were actually born. And the struggles that we have are getting people who did have real receipts to share. Got a whole lot of fakiness, a whole lot of Jafakins who can take a vacation because they feel Afrocentric. They know that they are somehow connected to Africa DNA-wise. They believe it, and you cannot argue them differently. Fine. Give them their argument. They are diasporic, and they do not have a full love for Blackness. give them their argument. But once you let them convince you that the African diaspora is more important than the information that I shared on the screen, then by all means, grift on. The risk that you find is that the pro-quack will guide you towards the Yamasee Nation of Cherokee, Moorish, Kemetic Orishas. And it will be determined to be ineligible for support. Now, by all means, the federal alert coming out of California is real. Where I live, there's petitions for the Ebony Alert. I can show you the work, but a lot of people wouldn't want to see the work if we show you it. What motto I got? Because I always got a lot more. Up next, we're going to follow the money. It might take 5 days to process this form of rejection. 5 days. 5 days. Go on and get it out your system. As I was looking through the Yamasee nations, there are so many nations and bands and Indians who had petitioned. And this is the 2011 list. There's a whole lot more, whole lot more, whole lot more. Choctaw, where they're at, their actual names. Who are these people who are claiming to be Indians? Who are these people who are claiming to be Cherokee? Where are they claiming to be Native American? And what is the difference between people who are just claiming it as a part of their lineage and the people who are willing to write it down versus these people who are blowing hot air? All they do is talk. They never have a receipt for anything ever. They never prove a mumbling word. They tell you, well, I'm Lower Muskogee Creek. Yeah, from where about? Georgia. Oh, you with, and then you ask them, and no, they ain't with none of that shit. They ain't with nobody. Oh, no, I'm not with them. I just know that that's who I am. Well, guess what? That still makes you one of these illegitimate, unclaimed bastards. And if you know your lineage and your history, then you ought to be able to walk this down with real receipts. This the 2011. They keep saying study the shit I'm putting on your screen. Oh, no, we don't even go by that because that's just what the white man published. Who, nigga? What white man you under now? Cabrini? Letter of intent to petition, going all the way back to the 80s, going all the way back to the I saw one of these petitions, petition 1930. Who are these people that they grifting and listening to? Michigan is a hell of a story. Michigan is a hell of a story. I love the Ohio story. I don't have to just keep articulating about California. I don't have to just keep articulating about New York or the East Coast. I don't have to just keep saying the South or the Louisiana tragic mulatto Negro, the Spanish Florida, the French Huguenots, Huego, Huron and what that meant, the Mississippi Mound people. Oh, but you moved to Mexico. Man, if you don't shut your they said the homie moved to Mexico like they was throwing an insult out there, and then made Passport Bros a movement that they were celebrating. You talk shit about a black man who moves to Mexico, and when I go into the reason of the move, nigga, to be a day one and experience it, 5 days would never be enough. So you talk about a family that moves to Mexico, a black family that moves to Mexico, and say they're not married, and then say you're getting a passport to go find a wife in Thailand? Nigga, I will never understand it. I'll just show you the receipts on the screen of the illegitimate seeds who are still petitioning for reparations and recognition from their white dad. I'm going to just show you. I'm going to just show you. Some people argue whether it should be a federal versus a state right. So I'm going to just show you the states then, nigga. You say it's a state argument? Then let's present fact. Again, the gentleman from Ohio, even in the Senate, is holding it down right now. In case you're missing it. Oklahoma is an interesting narrative with Kevin Samuels at best. South Carolina is even more interesting, with Thomas Sowell being included as a primary thought leader in this space, this very argument. You want to include Thomas Sowell? What about South Carolina then? We could talk about Texas, where in fact, we take it. You could just give us Texas, or we taking Texas, while we have a fighting congresswoman there who uses the real language and not advocating for men to support her. You just don't say we could take Texas, man. So we'll just show you the receipts. If I was a better content creator, I could have had all of these stream, print screen ready. Like when you look at the screen, you see it, it's big. You see the state by state, and we could do a breakdown on state by state petitioning by year for recognition. Because black didn't matter, remember? Black definitely doesn't matter if we're telling the little niggas to go to Africa, but Africans, that would be a Garvey argument. That man didn't make it. That would be O'Shea then. That's some passport shit. That would be ridiculing a married black man for taking his family. Hey, you know what's interesting? That same black man would have said, nah, you don't need I would think, and this is now me putting words in another man's mouth, which I tried to avoid the whole time anyway. Like, why the fuck do y'all want me to keep speaking for Taz? All right, then fuck it. I do subscribe to the channel. I support because there is a principle to be stood on. If you don't like the content, disagree. So now that I've said that, I'm black first because I am. You don't like it? Ask for more studies. HR 40 was a study. Omar Johnson got up there and asked for a study. Today we had another Afro-diasporic person get up there and say, we need another study. They want to keep studying the failed experience of black men. All right, keep studying. To me, it sounds as ridiculous as Donald Trump saying we need to build a wall. There's plenty of walls. 6 foot, we build walls every day, B. Side of the freeway, 9-foot walls, 10-foot walls, 30-foot walls, miles and miles of walls. Costco, you know how many walls they get in order to have a Costco? We just deal with building all the time. You want a wall? Okay, we'll build more walls. And they're going to pay for it. You renegotiate NAFTA. Yeah, they'll pay for it. It's a part of your trade agreement. First thing that he did was he let's do economics. Swim across the Mississippi, swim back. Swim across the Mississippi, swim back. When you swam across the Mississippi the first time, you needed rope. Them Kentucky boys, they were good with hemp. And they were good with a whole lot of shit. But at some point, what are you going to do with these trees, nigga? What you going to do with these trees? Big Five and dominoes. The favorite domino to have in dominoes has to be Big Five. I'm not going to lie to you. It has to be one of the most highly desired dominoes that one might want. Holy shit. Pan-Africanism could definitely strike back. Go ahead, Susie Q. I met a Susie Q when I was in South Africa, and she just posted on her Instagram. That would be a whole nother story. But go ahead. Now, Big Five is the most important domino. Because if I'm leading off, oh yeah, that's 10 points easy. Easy work. I know it without thinking about it. Big Five has to be the lead domino if I'm leading off. If you ask somebody who's not used to being in charge of even a domino game, well, what would you want to see happen? Well, you might get a different answer. Some people know the game of dominoes pretty good. They might tell you, no, Big Six has to be the most important domino because that's how the game starts. You have to start with Big Six. But yeah, it might be for those folks who don't really play dominoes. Some people will say Big Six is important, but if we playing heads up dominoes, if you ain't got Big Six, we will skip the hell out of Big Six. Oh, Big Sexy? Oh, yeah. Next. We don't even prefer to have it. In fact, I prefer to have 6-3 over Big Six. If we're playing heads up one-on-one dominoes, I prefer to have 6-3 more than I prefer to have big six, 6-6. Somebody else who wants somebody else to take the lead might desire 6-6 as their primary domino. I'm arguing that big five, as somebody who plays dominoes, is the most preferred domino. 5-5. Boom. 10 on the board. I'm going to hit you right now, or I'm going to hit you after you think you want some money and you think you can count by fives. I'm going to hit you with big five. My argument is that big five is more important. We will skip the hell out of 6-6. Big six, no. There are more disadvantages for big six than there are for advantages of the fives, even in dominoes. Playing heads up dominoes, me having the fives is more important, is better for me than you having the sixes. You have big six, you lead off. You took the lead. That's good for you. Big five, I'm going to hit you for 10 after we skip big six, and you know it. And in fact, if you have big six, you are afraid of my second choice, which is 6-3, being more important than 6-6. You're more afraid of my 6-3 than the 6-6 that you would claim to be the most important. Again, that would only be the person who thought that big six was the most important because big six leads it off. I'm a man. I want to lead off. Fuck you talking about. I want to lead off. And if you tell me that the rules of the game, when we go heads up, are big six, then play somebody heads up and see what their rules do when you and the person you're playing or going heads up with don't have big six. Let's see what happens. Some people will tell you if you don't got big six, then y'all got to pull until you find big six, or you can't start the game. That's how bad they want other people to tell them how to play their game. But in my household, we use nigga rules. In my household, and this is just the way that I was taught by my pops. Maybe he was taught the nigga rule. Maybe Louisiana has the wrong domino rules. But pops brought that shit to the West Coast, and when we have domino tournaments, big six, while some people say you have to start the game off with big six, there are some people who will say bullshit. And if you try to tell them that they got to pull in order to go find big six, they going to tell you bullshit. Especially if they know other rules to the game exist. I don't have to go by those rules. In the establishment of America and an American government, when white people and their settlers were choosing plats of land, and they were negotiating contracts of plats of land with the indigenous or the native people who already inhabited this motherfucker. And when they started assigning representatives to speak the language that they wanted it to be spoken in, whether it was a nasty language like Germanic, or a French language, or a dumbass English language, or a romantic Latin Spanish language. It didn't matter what language they assigned a representative in, because they were taking land. And they were claiming a right that they did not deserve. And they were putting their name on that shit. What you see on the screen is when that same adopt a fucking cave system started allowing the indigenous claimants, not started, they had been doing this shit. Well, you're recognized and you're not recognized. You're recognized and you're not recognized. You're recognized and you're not recognized. This data is 2011. Some people would say, well, we don't use 2011 data because there's more recent data available. I'll tell you to get it. Oh shit, they starting to put up the other ones? That's crazy. Because as of 2023, the Feather Alert system, this is real. And I don't play those games. In case you missed this. There is work to do. That says black. So Hike for Healing. Hike for Healing is for me. Tanjan, Hike for Healing may be for you as well. Because this next section is the economics. The Scott Trust Legacies of Enslavement Report. And some people don't like 2011 data. And so me putting the work on the screen will never get views. Never. And I'm supposed to be all right with that. Hike for Healing. I'm a father and my son's doing all right. So why am I the one screaming? I'm black and my son has good grades. My son is able to get opportunities. My son lives in a community where the members of the neighborhood haven't tried to kill him. And the school he attends celebrates his successes on a national stage. So why am I the one yelling and angry? Background research, statement, and apology from the Scott Trust Board. Their proposal for a program of restorative justice and further information. Because I said, we're going to get to the money. Oh, but when we try to get to the money, we see what happens to the font once we start dealing with fiction versus dealing with what is real. This is what is written down, and what is written down might be hard to read unless you can zoom in on the information that they're presenting. And even if I zoom in, I'm not sure that people would want to read it. I've downloaded the PDF. I know that the research exists. This particular instance, it got real deep. It went in. Where is it though? Let's look and see if I can see it on my additional screen. They ain't even giving me the option to share those ones. So, right, because it would be a mess if I had to share the rest of these. These joints hurt feelings. The rest of these screens would start hurting feelings. State report planning. A successful U.S. state research report takes planning and organization. Two components of a U.S. state research report are the research report and the state motto. It will have a due date. It will have the state name. The research report requirements. Man, I could get into it. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm having sync issues. That's what's happening. I'm getting some notifications, although I normally try to get the notifications to stop when I'm going live. This time they just keep going. And where is the actual screen they're sharing so I can see if I can zoom in on that joint? It's a file, and they're allowing it to be shared as a whole screen file. Right. Okay. So yeah, it is their copyrighted work. So they're fair use, fair use. These niggas need a conversation with facts and receipts in it. Because at the end of this whole, we do a study. The study then makes its research. Well, here's the study, and the research found, and then they want an apology. So I wanted to show them the apology. And then they have these recommendations, and they recommend a program. And then after the program, it says, well, the program should do X, Y, and Z. And we've been doing this for generations. Same loop cycle. And I call it Cabrini. A program of restorative justice and what it should look like. Sheesh. They working on it. They working on it. They working on it. They don't got the Zoom feature that would allow that shit to run. Yo, morning blend. Fast forward to the type of information that is needed when they start saying solutions. I would argue that this is the way plans come together when you're looking to connect communities. Damn. And then here, without the option to zoom in. I can see it, but I cannot see it getting larger on the screen, even though I'm hitting my zoom. If it's not getting larger on the screen, then it's not making itself readily available for those who say we need to show receipts. We know that there are Black people who are actually out there, community activists. But what is it that they actually talk about when they're not on the social media space? Who are they talking to? What are the plans that are in development? Some people say, well, at the local level, you need to know who your local people are, who your local council members are. Here it is. The following is a visualization of the keypad survey questions and collective responses. Where do you live? What facilities you use? How would you rate the quality of pedestrian facilities? What bicycle facilities? Because you know they want to do studies, right? Which of the following do we need more of? Trails, multi-use paths, sidewalks, bicycle routes, bicycle paths. What are the top 3 priorities? Safety, connectivity, access to other modes of transportation such as transit, or amenities such as seating. How about shade in the community? Is having more shade in the community more important if you live in a desert? What destinations should bicycle and pedestrian facilities connect to? Parks, open spaces, and trailheads. Neighborhoods, both sitting at 20% or more. What are the top 3 improvements needed related to the bicycle and pedestrian network in Buckeye? Bicyclist safety, 25%. Pedestrian safety, 17%. More separation between the pedestrians, the cyclists, and traffic. So the following plan goes into details of one of their meetings. On the top, they put their visual presentation board together. They included the shade trees, although I would have said that didn't get any high marks. And as you see on the board, if you give the members who are attending the meeting a sticker, one sticker green, meaning green dots signify a positive preference, red dots signify a negative preference. They put on the board their negative preferences, what they do not want. Their green preferences, specific to the changes they would like to see in the communities that we are developing. Green dots and red dots, community activism. Surveys that are related to the actual conditions you are looking to improve. And we can haggle again about whether the survey was valid. Did it survey enough people? Are these the right questions to ask given this project? But the primary issue or challenge that we have where I'm at may be different than the primary challenges you have where you're at. For us, public safety was such an issue that if a 16-year-old daughter of the Walker family was killed by a motor vehicle, 2 years later, we would still be fighting to get funding and get a billboard up to help that family get closer to closure 2 years later. We have a billboard up on the freeway now that helps that family get closer to closure by just even having their daughter, rest in peace, as now a symbol for more public safety. Politics is a slow burden, a very slow burden. And I knew that there was an issue on protecting our children because as a man, their primary chief concern was not wanting to protect the woman who gave birth to the child. And if those men do not want to serve the country, and they had a problem with the violent men in their own communities, which made them no longer want to fight men. And so what other alternatives were available? Their problems were fear of Pookie and Ray Ray. As men, they feared fighting Pookie and Ray Ray. And so they ran from the community. And they didn't want to serve in the military. They said student loans are dumb. They said getting a mortgage in America is bad debt. I don't know what else to do with the manosphere other than, like they said, let them go, y'all. The facts have been presented. They can run under the, if they want to be native, they can want to be native. There are legitimate claims for Native American sovereignty. Just like the Moors have put in their legitimate claims for sovereignty. That identity crisis is not preventing them from addressing the core issues. They asked me the question. I said, I'm Black. And I'm doing the research for my own family. What's wrong with that? My mom was the librarian. My mom she has to be able to pass that torch. That information will not just die because my mom had three sons. And the other two were Marines, are always going to be Marines. And they fucked up. There's no coming, I will never get the relationship that I had with either of her sons back. Me and my brother, that relationship is dead. In every sense of the word, that brother that I knew before they became Marines, that nigger ain't coming back. I don't know what training or after training you think would be available to bring a Marine back from their experiences to now just be a regular civilian. Blood lineage could make them my brother, but the man that I knew that left and became a young man at that, still my mama's son, that nigga ain't never coming back, ever. Blood brothers. And I remember when O'Shea Duke Jackson once said that my brother was one of the smartest people that he's ever met. If you attended Grant High School, you would know that. Him and Mike Lewis, they were into the gaming and the coding and doing all the shit with technology and going into competitions. Is some geeky, nerdy shit. I would never claim to understand all of the technical back end of coding and computer software development and people who just know how to do all of that shit. They can create entire worlds online as programmers. In my family, that was my brother. He became a Marine, and I said he was a Marine. He is always a Marine, a 100% permanent and total disabled Marine. Dead to me. I had to learn to accept the Marine. I had to learn to accept that the brother that we ate all of our meals together in the home. Not all, we had some we didn't. But that very Marine that's not my brother. That Marine has experienced something exclusive to a small group of folks. You know how bad I wanted to body bag this session? The Marine uniform for the what was it, like the Tripoli Agreement or the Barbary Wars? That original Moorish science document where the Marines started wearing uniforms that were similar to that would be too deep. That's because chronologically, the birth of the Army and the uniforms, how they choose to represent themselves. The Marines donning the uniforms that are more similar to Tripoli, and the shako as a hat, and rocking those all the way before we can talk about this Trail of Tears. And that then preceding the Oklahoma argument that my mom wanted to make. That then preceding this Andrew Jackson type of Trail of Tears. That preceding it by years. Then it also precedes my Census 1830 data. Even my argument would be with all the data that I could even say I believe in, the Library of Congress Army as a primary would be more valid than the census. So me showing the actual uniforms of the Marines when they were signing their agreement, is that too much? That's angry quacking? It's too much? As their population started to grow, the South Carolina and or the Paris Island and the the Hudson Bay, is it too much to show the demographic increase and where it actually came from based on their data? Let me get my angry quack out. Show you the facts. Show you this Yamasee, Choctaw, Cherokee, Moorish rejection. Why not? Why not just show it? It seems that this is the recognition, the First Nations type of recognition that they're asking for. Civilized tribes or 5 nations of Iroquois. Is this what we're looking for? The recognition that they received? Is this Black reparations that we're looking for? Let me show it this way. Interior Department announces next steps to protect the stability and sustainability of the Colorado River Basin. 4/11/2023, Boulder City, Nevada, to address the continued potential for low runoff conditions and unprecedented water shortages in the Colorado River Basin. The Department of the Interior's Bureau of Reclamation, to reclaim something, like Auntie Maxine reclaims her time. The Interior Bureau of Reclamation. Why are you reclaiming this land? Well, you're reclaiming it in order for the development proposals to move forward. What development proposals are you referring to? Well, on April 11th, 2023, they released a draft supplemental environmental impact statement. Why did they release it? To potentially revise the current interim operating guidelines, because rules change, just like dominoes. We call them nigga rules. And if you thought Big Six was most important because that's big sexy, that's wanting somebody else's rules to lead you. But if you actually know the game, then you know that rules change depending on which geographic region you're in. Even when it comes to something like dominoes, they'll change the rules on you. And it's not just a black thing to have nigga rules. It's to potentially revise the current interim operating guidelines, to potentially revise the current, which means right now, interim. So they want to revise what they temporarily put in place as an operating guideline for the near term, meaning just for right now. So we temporarily want to revise what we've temporarily revised as a guideline. Okay? Glen Canyon and Hoover Dam. Because I was raised with the Bloods. Now my angry quack has to come out. Has to come out. Because y'all don't know about Glen Elders. But you think you can talk this Cabrini Green shit with me. You don't know about your Glen Elders, but you think you can talk about Cabrini. You think you can say, but they gave the Italians and they gave but you don't know about Cabrini. You don't know shit about Cabrini or Glen Elders. You don't know about Black elders. You don't know about the people who actually have been active for generations. So let me then tell you about the Hoovers then. Because if I talk about Hoover Dam and its impact on water and why the Interior Bureau of Reclamation and why Auntie Maxine reclaiming her time, or why the reclamation of land and water shortages and temporarily, we just need to temporarily change this temporary change to the guideline. Meaning, if neither of us that are going heads up got Big Six, I'm not pulling in no graveyard. I got Big Five. I'm playing Big Five and I'm getting my 10. They putting points on the board, and I told you it was going to be economic. It was always about silver, and these folks don't know anything about land use. What are minerals and resources? Well, one of the most important ones are the water wars from California. But if you couldn't make it across the Mississippi, then how the fuck was you supposed to plant a tree in a desert like a Buffalo Soldier and get heritage and cultural recognition for the California gold miners of 1849, not knowing shit about Andrew Jackson dying in 47, no Trail of Tears, no Reverend Nat Turner Revolution shit, or a Barbary War that a Moor can talk about. The Louisiana Purchase of 1812. The Census Bureau of 1830. The 60s with the silver uniform, the gray uniform, and the blue. And it was the Civil War. I know you motherfuckers don't know shit. They wouldn't know shit about the plantation if their family told them. So for me to put it in their hands to determine what the free people in my family could tell me, all right, at some point I can tell you what that angry quacking is going to lead to. Or I can draw this shit all the way out. Their preference might be 6'6", and that's completely up to them. There are facts and then there's this fiction. Today's release comes on the heels of historic investments the Biden-Harris administration announced last week as part of an all-of-government effort to make the Colorado River Basin and all the communities that rely on it more resilient to climate change and the ongoing drought in the West. Historic investment. The draft seismic report, SEIS, environmental impact statement, supplemental environmental impact statement, analyzes alternatives and measures to address operations, system integrity, public health and safety in 2024 through 2026, after which the current guidelines expire. It also ensures reclamation has the tools to protect continued water deliveries and hydropower production for the 40 million Americans who rely on the Colorado River. Colorado River Basin provides more than 40 million Americans. It fuels hydropower resources in 8 states, supports agricultural communities across the West, and is a crucial resource for 30 tribal nations. Failure is not an option. Recognizing the severity of the worsening drought, the Biden-Harris administration is bringing every tool and every resource to bear through the president's Investing in America agenda to protect the stability and sustainability of the Colorado River system now and into the future. Drought conditions in the Colorado River Basin have been 2 decades in the making. To meet this moment, we must continue to work together through a commitment to protecting the river, leading with science and a shared understanding that unprecedented conditions require new solutions, said the Bureau of Reclamation Commissioner. The draft released today is the product of ongoing engagement with the basin states and water commissioners, the 30 basin tribes, water managers, farmers, and irrigators, municipalities, and other stakeholders that are still responsible to this very day for ensuring these people can have a sip of water and a shower every day. But they love white people so much they forget that these agreements are real. They forget that we're still on the clock on taking care of white people by the millions. And yes, we benefit, but the billions and billions of dollars that are really being invested in right now, well, those are on the clock. These are real conversations that nobody would know. Draft of the alternatives. I don't know if somebody has shared these with you. They're probably talking about the Indians. We're Indians. We're the real Indians. We're the real natives. We're the real indigenous. They're telling you that they're real. Well, here's the money. All right, so there's 281 million in 21 water recycling projects that are expected to increase annual water capacity by 127,000 acre feet annually, up to 233 million in water conservation funding for the Gila River Indian Community, including $83 million for a water pipeline project and an additional $50 million from the Inflation Reduction Act through the Lower Colorado River Basin System Conservation and Ethic. God, all the big words. I can't even say the big words when I'm angry quacking. Fuck that. Let's look at who these people are so they'll finally understand. Gila River Indian Community. Copy. Stop screen share. And there you go. Treaty of St. Mary. Who is St. Mary that they keep talking about? And this William. Who are these St. Marian Williams and Marian Williams College and Institute and Marian William? All we keep hearing about is Marian William. Marian William. Marian William. The Treaty of St. Mary's. Oh, that wasn't y'all? Because a lot of people get it right. Some people get it wrong. They know about the time. They know about when and where these decisions started being made. They just don't want to put the who and the what's and the why it's together. Oh, but that's not enough. Get off my screen. We got other receipts. There's a whole lot more. There's a lot more. I showed you Buckeye 2040. Showed you the list, Native American, Indian, Cherokee, all of that. 2011 list. Showed you the feather alert. This is where the conversation gets interest. Because in reaching across the aisle, it is the extension to Kemet or Egypt or the Ptolemies or again the Greek, where I find that's where it gets, you start losing me. You can lose me when you start saying the bourgeoisie. You would lose me because in the 90s, the bourgeoisie on TV, well, they looked like me. The shows that they looked like me on would be a great old school trivia game. But that's still looking at a lens of uneven pillars. I like where this one going. I see it right now, even though I don't even know where they all at. This is this Boys to Men? The uneven pillars of old school, and the lessons about boys to men, and how we're propagating the story of what it means to go from boys to men. A political plot twist. Okay, I can rock with my own slides. Let's go, man. I find it was hard for me to even make a slide like this. And now that I see what I was doing here, I see what I was doing here. This was exactly for me, the angry quack. I'll be right back. Not that it matters, because it looks like I'm the only one rocking. Let's go though. Angry quack moments. Let's get it. Just enough to be dangerous. Just enough to be dangerous. Angry quack moments from boys to men, and what that message is looking like in modern propagation. I can see where this was going. I typically didn't want to do that, and making these kind of slides are offensive to me, because it's like, well, now it looks like I was creating the defamation of the image of black men. And if I even have the conversation that says, look, when you become a man, is not for you to then pursue the girls that you were a boy, and so it makes it a little bit difficult to have these conversations in our spaces. And our spaces are now integrated, and they're integrated across all of those paradigms, including now to be and I don't like it, inclusive of some very far-reaching ideologies. Not just a Greek Hellenistic, where this fake ass, this is still fiction now. This fiction is a story of Alexander the Great, who, when he was given whatever authority, that he was supposed to have been white, and he had armies, and he sent their armies to Egypt, a melting pot. And when their people got there, his generals were then given free reign to go and have sex. And they were encouraged to have sex as much as they could and create these new multicultural spaces. Alexander the Greek story. And we're now in this space where we're accepting that even Alexander the Greek's offspring are dealing with the traumas of blackness. I would say that shit is as politically correct as I can, even while I'm angry quacking. That the offspring of Ptolemy cannot represent the black side. The offspring Cleopatra has to be the white offspring of Alexander the Greek. It has to be the Greek. It can't be the black. It has to be the Greek. It can't be Cush. It can't be the cursed Ham being represented. It can't. That African argument only gets more complicated. We're so, when I'm black, I'm good with that. I understand that there are so many hues of black already. And the only reason why I can really validly say I understand that is because of Rashida Strober's breakdown on colorism. And from her lens, she broke it down from a lens of darkism, which helped me understand light skin preference, to then be able to understand why they don't understand ethnicities versus nationalities, and then the racism argument altogether. So by extension, the are you out of Africa, or where do you think your people originated argument can just really get big once you include that the Christian, Southern Christian church, Baptist church, says one thing. The Muslims then have had their we come from story done another thing with, is what the religions of Abraham have done with race exactly what they said they wanted to do with race. You can believe them. To extend the argument of the tragic mulatto from its Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, and W.E.B. Du Bois, the Pan-African community then would use Chancellor Williams, which told you about the destruction of Black civilizations, the destruction of Black civilizations, the destruction of Black civilizations, the conversation being extended by who? Chancellor Williams. Again, a tragic mulatto argument. I know it hurts. I know it hurts because it's just enough information to be dangerous. I learned more from Rashida Strober about darkism than when we look at the facts of the destruction of Black civilizations. I just did. All right, so Poison, another angry quack. They would say feminism is what poisoned the Black male ideology. He didn't want to be Black male identified anymore because the Black woman chose the state. They don't understand statehood arguments, nor do they understand nationality. We pointed that out to them, nor do they understand culture or heritage. They wouldn't understand Buffalo Soldier as a term of endearment or as identifying one's enemies. They wouldn't know the difference between Cochise and Sitting Bull. They don't know dates. They don't know time. They don't know Dakota from Mexico. They don't know Apache from Cherokee. They don't know a Creek from a Glen Elder, nor do they know the projects from a hole in a wall. And we're supposed to keep debating these niggas? Poison was the shucklebuck dancing of the Step and Fetch It era, extended by making them responsible for intergenerational wealth that did not know what a generation meant because they were busy abandoning fatherhood. So I put on the red, or I tried to anyway. But being raised in a predominantly red space, for generations, those who had put on the red before me had every right to determine what they say the rites of passages for anybody claiming to want to put on red. By the time of my development, they had already worked out the requirements on who could put on the red. And if you was just going to be one of these singing, dancing ass niggas, then they didn't just allow anybody to represent the red. I know things change in the generations, you know what I'm saying? There's things that change. And so we're supposed to at some point say, are these celebrities the representation of Step and Fetch It, dancing, or are they representatives of good fatherhood? To me, there is a river between one and the other. If we want them to be good representatives of fatherhood, that's going to be a different debate than if you're saying, well, these people should represent mentors. While that's a separate debate, I know that there is a river between the value of even saying that these people should be the representatives of Black fatherhood. That's poison. Oh, but there's more. Because while having the conversation with Lex is enough to say, yeah, they're getting a lot more inclusive when we talk this Yamasee, Cherokee, Moorish reject. And in their petitioning for the white recognition being determined to be ineligible. It goes a lot deeper than that. Because they have to be willing to put their name and a primary address and a source for the information when people are actually vetting, not just saying, well, you can't vet black men, but when they actually look at who it is and say, is this the representation that you want? We can see images of real people. The tragic mulatto incident is where you look at Frederick Douglass and it's like, well, by most of these images, I would have questioned whether or not he had a mirror when he was claiming that he was white. I would never have assumed that Plessy would have had an assumption if he was white, where when he was looking at the people they were saying were his family members, he was like, are you sure that, I know that you told me this is Big Mama. I know you told me that this is the mammy and that the mammy takes care of all of us massa kids. But are you telling me that this is my blood brother? Because there are some tragic mulattoes who, if you line them up next to a nigga with a nose like the one you see on your screen, they would say, look, now I don't even know if they have the same like DNA origin geographically on the globe, let alone were they born from the same father. And so they said, well, that's not the argument. The argument from an angry quack perspective was that you are what your father is until you start dealing with the real conversation about DNA. And yeah, it hurts. It does hurt. It hurts to where you don't want to pull together the receipts. Where, yeah, you would rather go all the way back in time to the Hellenistic period and Troy, nigga. You would rather go back to when there were multiple gods recognized, not just the Orishas. You want to go back to recognize Greek gods. When they were studying at a library, you said they burned down on a continent you're telling me was destroyed by the very people whose system you want me to emulate? Let them talk. They want me to keep thinking that black is wrong. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get y'all there. Because the same people who want you to believe that black is wrong are the same ones when you actually do the vetting. This is what we find. It's not my problem. I live on this side of the Mississippi. To me, this is a Harlem problem. This is an issue where the Crip superior, the blue side, would have had to identify that he claims to be their Crip superior. This isn't a red issue. A red issue on the west of the Mississippi. We already know what happened to our men when our men tried to stand up out of Oakland and Del Paso and Richmond and Los Angeles and spaces of such. We know what happened when our black men tried to stand up. So you tell me what's going on with your superior men. Because our women shouldn't have to take these L's. Why do they have to cry so hard? Well, the reason why the women have to cry so hard is because the woman wasn't protected, and that led to the children not being protected. Because it was other men attacking the women, it was supposed to have been the men to protect the women. But yet, what we find when we do the real research, not just the fiction and what being written down says, we find the manifestation of Angry Quack 4.0, this bond between the House of Consciousness and a red pill mentality that's always existed, even back when Helen of Troy didn't. And they put a light skin on a pedestal and said, in order to create more light skin, we need to take the black off. Curse Ham. And Cleopatra, being represented by her black side, would be bad. She must be represented by her Greek side. The conquering light skin. We know receipts don't work. Fuck you mean? Why is he angry? Polite charged in Miami last night for a horrible act after I show you on the screen the Treaty of St. Mary with the people of Miami. The actual legitimate, real, certified, recognized way back before all of this mattered. And most people just get it wrong. Show you the real treaty that most people get wrong. I'll show you the real people who actually recognized and put their hands up. And that list included a Dr. Malachi York. And it was out of Georgia, which is a problem for Harlem. Out of Sacramento, the chill gangster may have wanted to smoke and ride a skateboard. But the Manosphere message would have him believe that it is safer for him in Vietnam or Korea than it is in our own communities. And we've heard that said and done. We've heard that argument time and time again. And no matter how we try to tell them, yeah, but no, we actually didn't find safety and salvation in Korea or Vietnam. Japan got hit with one of the most devastating weapons the world has ever seen. It was not hospitable. They would challenge the Democratic side by saying so much about history that they could dismiss us from the constitutional rights of it, saying, look, these constitutional rights had nothing to do with black people. This is an agreement among white men on how they should treat each other, with the first being their regards to amending the way they should talk to each other and how they should express themselves. And if that doesn't work, then you have a Republican doctrine of violence. And if that doesn't work, many people can't make it past the second. But in civilian homes, shouldn't have to house. And then fourth, and then fifth, and then sixth, and then seventh, and then eighth. I remember when Kamala Harris said this at the funeral, I thought about it for a second and I said, well, let me write that down. She said Tyree Nichols should have been safe This violent act was not in the interest of public safety. Was he not also entitled to the right to be safe? And it immediately took me to the Wakanda Black Panther way of thinking, where safety in the hands of Black men still is the authorization of violence to somebody. Somebody. And in this case, the revolution that happened was when Black, even in Wakanda, all the way up to their leadership, royal family in fiction, the royal family had to determine, well, who gets to use all this technology and guide us into our future as we deal with these others. And they had a war. It was like, should it be the Jabari tribe? What the fuck is the Jabari tribe? Should it be this tribe? What the should it just be the royal family? I know if I debate people and conversations go into this into this fiction shit, they be mad as hell. But if you show them the truth, well, they don't get mad. That's poison. Because they blamed it on feminism. And they would still to this very day say it was the woman and her attitude, her behaviors. As a father, I would point you back towards reality the best I can in case you miss these things. There is actual work. Like the reparations argument. This says Black reparations. And I showed you all of this Indian information, all the way to Gila River and the billions and billions. What I didn't show you was their reparations claim that was made. And I could show that on a later stream, but it wouldn't matter the receipts I showed. I'm not them. And so the list of petitions from Yamasee to Creek and all of the people who say they are, and their family is already verified. There are many families that I know they were absolutely better at writing down names and dates and times and places than the overall argument is. So I'm not saying there aren't Black or melanated Cherokee. My argument is that all of them folks, when I started seeing them, were melanated, and that in the recognition of 5 tribes or civilized tribes, you had some race mixers who were applying for recognition for their white father's inheritance through those treaties. And that's why they were referring to Miami. But when it got to the manosphere, it became a space of celebrating sexual tourism and degeneracy. That's my argument if somebody wants it plain. That it had always been there, and that's the Alexander the Greek way of allowing Ptolemy's generals or the royal family to populate once they've destroyed the Blackness in order to destroy the Blackness. And the way to do so is to allow those generals from those other Greek cultures, the Ptolemies, to then make Cleopatra more Greek in her line, Ptolemy Soter, then make that more important, the Africa side, and make the curse more important. And so now today, even if I show you Black, a good Black, it's only for Black to be laughed at and ridiculed. They don't want to see it. Show a good father for what? Show you good fathering for what? Why, when I can show you the facts of Buckeye 2040? Peace and salute. Why, when I can already build into it and show you the money, where the money went, when they decided that that's where the money should go? I got about 5 minutes, and I could take a question if anyone has one. Happy birthday to my wifey, who fought her way out of that same Del Paso Heights to earn her doctorate. And today we're going to get it in. We're going to celebrate Doc Jenkins. Earn it. Because they want to study Black people. And in fact, they want to study Black men. So they could then say, well, after we've studied Black men, we can work on assigning a mentor. And once we got good Black men, we can determine what a good Black mentor, and we can assign a mentor to help more Black kids. But on the other side of that argument, there is one that says we need Black men to be better fathers for the children that they have. And that comes far and before you start saying mentor, 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 mentor. Mentor, 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 mentor. The men have been on tour for a long time. 5 days should be the minimum amount of time that you allow this information to process before you try to respond to me angry, quacking it up. Because if you respond to me and I see a response, and I know exactly who I'm talking to, he claims to be a deacon for defense or something like that, give it 5 days. Because you go in on me again, Big Six is not my favorite domino. 5-5 is. I don't need Big Six to start the game. And when I 5-5 play, it's a hit. That's 10 to get in. It's my favorite domino. I'm going to slam that motherfucker when I play it. I got time for a question if Deacon the Defense wants to come in and have a conversation. He is the only person who typically makes a response video to the shit that I put out. Everybody else finds their value and moves forward. If your argument is that you want a home and you haven't made your way to Arizona, I don't want to hear it. Texas is also affordable. If you're trying to move back south, which is like some people saying, oh, we want to go to Alabama, there's a lot more land out there that you can get for the same price. Are you building bridges? And what are you doing to build these bridges? In this very case, it seems like we jump into the Mississippi, get across, we put the stake down on the west of the Mississippi and say, as fathers, this is what we're standing on. And then as men, we jump our stupid ass back in that Mississippi to swim back across to where the mentor argument is. And we only do so because now that we have the stake down, we want to be able to get the rope across. And then we jump our dumb ass back across this river to swim to where we put the stake down and tie the motherfucking stake from the west to the east. And then we do it again and we do it again till we put a plank down. And then we build bridges to get over some of this shit. But until we're able to do so, I don't want to hear that unity talk shit. They don't know what unity actually is. They made Michi X cry. And I don't like that shit, so fuck them. I already didn't like them niggas So that already made it hard for a unity conversation with me anyway. I tell them niggas I don't like them. Brother George Macon, he loves to use the 90s and before as one of those, will look at black women and black women were out doing X, Y, and Z. I didn't like it before they decided there should be a Hulu documentary about it. You want to talk about the 90s? There were plenty of opportunities for black men to step up. They want to talk about, oh, well, the affirmative action became a white woman's welfare. That still sounds like a tragic mulatto experience where the destruction of black civilizations is continuously perpetuated, because when niggas had as hard as it is to get political clout, when they did have it, if the white woman took it all, then nigga, what was you doing? They don't know Glenn Elders, so it's hard to have a conversation around facts. And when we show them the facts, they don't show up for class. Salute to Cascade. Which says, I am my grandmother's rebellion. I am too. I am as well. Now, let me tell you now, while 6'3" is the second most important domino after Big 5 to me. First, I want Big 5. I don't want Big 6. I don't want somebody else telling me that Big 6 is the way to start the game. And where I was raised, we did have a rule in dominoes where if we're going heads up, we don't have to start the game with Big 6, which is why I didn't prefer it. It's not that I don't want to be in the lead to start the game, because I absolutely do. But with me being in the lead and with me being in charge of my own projection here, I don't want to start with Big 6. I want to start with Big 5. While others come into the conversation learning about civil rights, and civil rights meaning I have the right to vote, I have the right to a fair or living, minimum wage. Minimum wage. Others come into this intellectual space saying it shouldn't be a minimum wage. I am entitled to a living wage. And others are like, well, if I'm going to work, why should I even have to negotiate a living wage? And until you've been an entrepreneur that has to hire somebody else, that conversation doesn't really matter. As long as you're the person that's only asking for somebody else to pay your way, then what the minimum or the living wage requirement is doesn't matter. Oh, but it does start to matter once you're the person who's paying other wages. In those cases, paying a living wage has its advantages. Sole proprietorships start off very personalized. Partnerships, now that is still personal. I don't know how you can move into a business structure of a partnership without economics. So while some people start with a social experiment on dating and what we should do, others say silver rights. Silver. LVER. And it might take 5 days for people to understand that. The bourgeoisie, they've had long enough and a historic track record of failures. At some point, we ought to be able to look at the track record of the NAACP, not at 1911 or not at Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall had a son, CoreCivic, or the private prison industrial system. They have a track record. We can review that. The information is available. That's where the money went. I've done it on my stream. Others don't want to talk about it. They just like to throw out this argument about the prison system and the mass incarceration. It was mass incarceration. Then why don't you look at the Thurgood Marshall model, since they are the ones who dealt with the privatization of prisons? That's the data. No, we need the police to actually tell us how many hate crimes from white supremacy. Why would you need them to tell you that if their police force is 75% white identified? The 25% of diversity, much of that is still white people. And you want them to give you the data that you need. That's as ridiculous as asking the CDC to give you data about parenting. For them, they would get parenting data from the CDC as a primary source, even if the parenting data is generic and as irrelevant as it is today, as it was when they did the survey. And one of the wealthiest pillars of our community, Oprah Winfrey, would still use that as data and call it significant. Nothing against Oprah. I'm just going to tell you that that is some Madam C.J. Walker supporting. I'm with the shit. I understand it. But your blackness is being co-opted. I've heard plenty of black women who came forward and said, I know exactly who my grandfather is and was, and he was a good man. For her, oh, we need a study, is the same thing when they try to debate and say, well, nah, you can't use what your grandma said during this debate. You can't use what your grandma told you that you was Indian. Oh, you can't use those old pictures from the early 1900s that your grandma got in her photo album. You can't use that you need DNA Ancestry.com. We try to tell them about the mitochondrial DNA argument, and they'll say you are what your father is. We try to tell them that doesn't go past rape them, and they keep trying to give us these other conversations that we're not listening to. You know what I didn't get? I didn't get a notification of me going live, but there it is. I'm live. 9 people rocking. That's what's up. Let's see who's with us this way. Add as a moderator. Managing there are 2 types of moderators now. There's a managing moderator and a standard moderator. A managing moderator can manage blocked words, change chat modes in live, and also has capabilities of standard moderators. And then a standard moderator can review and remove chat messages. I am my grandmother's rebellion. Should have a wrench. Tay-Tay comes in peace. I haven't even looked and seen like okay, we good. Nicole S. Andrea said happy birthday to Brother Moses' wife, Doc Jenkins. I'll tell you all said that. Some of y'all get standard. MJ, I did not know you did not have one. Managing. You can correct me if I'm wrong. L Bug don't got no wrench over here. Sheesh. Cuss people out. Let them know. If feathers come over here, you'll defend the feathers too. If they pull back their arrow in the chat and they let that arrow rip, and somebody don't like it, El Bug will go back in and tell y'all, nah, man, y'all better let them rock. Reese. So you know what happened? It had been some that came and went. I don't know if I ever went back and edited. I didn't have a reason to edit because I still don't really got people who actually dislike me. I think I got more people who dislike that I fuck with other people. And that's shit. They, broke people should have those concerns. Even some rich people can have the right to be concerned. Maurice. I talk shit about Maurice, but I would actually meet Maurice and his family, and to be honest, he actually is invited to the barbecue. And yes, I would want to know if his family is the type to put the fucking raisins in and if that's what y'all do with y'all potato salad. I'm not eating that shit. But yeah, if that's what y'all do, then okay. Because my wife does fried ribs. Maybe you don't like fried beef ribs. That could be on y'all. Maybe you don't like fried pork ribs. You don't like pork at all. That's on you. But culturally, now what else we got? The Rift, west of the Mississippi for me. It does deal with the military science that many of us don't want to talk about. Hopefully I covered just a little bit of that to keep folks dangerous. On the Buffalo Soldier argument, we can keep presenting the Buffalo Soldier argument in its various forms, but again, they want to talk about Shaka Zulu Nim. So let's talk about Shaka Zulu. They want to talk about Thoth and Themis. So let's talk about Themis and Thoth. They want to talk about Geb. Let them talk about Geb while we talk about them talking about Geb and all of the dysfunction that happened on that fucking wall. Oh, I haven't seen that one yet. MJ, let me put it on the screen. Oh, okay, so I'm looking at the other one. Is that what's really on my screen right now? Let me see. Share screen. All right, so let me share the screen. Brother Moses, did you hear about that young black man farmer in Georgia getting his farm legally taken away by a millionaire white family with connects with the courts? These kangaroo court systems. I did not hear about this one specifically, but I would love to receive the article. I appreciate it. As long as it wasn't Brother Ben X and what they're doing down there, that's when I'd be hot. You know, Tyrese was like, hey, and I'm encouraging all black, you know, if you're a part of this and you're a part of that, and I need all of my brothers to get your press pass and show up to my child support hearing. You remember when he said that? Like Tyrese was saying that shit? I should play that. See, if I was really being petty, I'd play that Tyrese shit too. Because to me, that is a prime representation of the celebrity worship culture. I'd play that. How we want to rally. He wanted us to rally and petition behind the child support. And Brother Ben X was trying to get people to say, hey, we buying up all this land that's right here. We got this many more plots that are available. Helen of Troy was an interesting thing for me. So let me look and see if it's open. Oh, I see it now. I see this one. I see the sharing screen icon. It's fake, if you ask me. But they say it's fiction or something along those lines. The same way I say Africa worship, or when I was debating Taz Exclusives about Africa, and he said what you're doing is presenting an argument about the romanticization of Africa. He said, Moses, what you're doing is no better than Africa worship. And during that debate, yeah, we did have a debate about Africa versus America. By extension of that debate, if it's Africa worship, this Helen of Troy shit, I know many Helens and Helenas, and I rock with Helens and Helenas. So y'all hold on to y'all hats. But this story was Greek myth. It was supposed to have been fake, but it became the primary crux of civilizations as they wanted to identify with culture and heritage. They didn't say it was ours. They said it was theirs, from which they claim to have learned some of the very pillars and columns And the design of school of thought and thinking and structuring school or education, what it means to learn from their experiences on the continent of Africa. These collective works go so far back that I don't think that they should be necessary to be included in real debates. But many want to talk about the Queen of Sparta the same way they want to talk about Queen Sheba. And they would want us to fall under the umbrella of those who represented the Queen or the Helen of Argos because she was more beautiful than trying to understand why the curse of Ham. And so we get lost in it. But she believed, as they say, to have been the daughter of Zeus. And I keep talking about these pantheons and why they want to, because in today you have Omar, who's one of the proud people saying the West African spiritual systems that included the Orishas and Ogun and Oshun and Odun and Ovun and Ogun and Olun and all of these other things that we're supposed to be going back to. Instead of understanding that we got work to do in being black right now, he is the one who uses the tragic mulatto who identified himself as white, Frederick Douglass, who knew all about the curse of Ham and still identified as white, as the forefront of his school and name bearer, FDMG. Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey being the one who said, you niggas have a problem. It's about identifying with Africa, not your own self here in America. But they love Omar the same way they love the nigga who puts up a museum to celebrate buck broken black people. Rape culture. But I'm supposed to chill? No, they love this Romanization shit. And I'm just telling you that that's what they said. But we use all the receipts and all the fucking pretty rocks that they wanted to draw on. And they said, see, they drew it on the inside of a cave, as if the Mississippi mounds, which now look like very nice movie theaters in some places, are more important. And so they were abducted, is what they're saying. This woman was abducted by somebody named Paris of Troy. Whether you believe it or not, them and their Hermione Granger, Harry Potter bloodline stories of blonde hair and brunette experiences as they ravaged the red hair people. And then turn around and gave Charles Darwin a solution for science that dealt with flowers and the virginity of flowers and how these flowers should be protected, while their primary story is about the abduction of a woman. And this is what they base their society after. The romanticization of it, that once they got to what they considered Africa, his generals could fuck everything that was not killed. Some of them looked Oriental, not Caucasoidian, or however the fuck that would have looked. If you look at these rocks and this artwork, which is still a rock, they may have looked at like this image, a recovery of Helen by Menelaus, which is still supposed to be myth. But because somebody drew this supposed to be myth on a rock, it's more important than a fucking feather alert. I disagree, of course, which is why I get mad at the angry quack. I don't want the angry quack to come out, but I tell them that they're worshiping some Greek and they're romanticizing the Greek. And then I'm going to show them and stop talking about it, because I still don't like them either. They're still talking about the wrong rivers. When they want to run this Jesus story, they're still talking about the wrong rivers. We have rivers right here in America that we could be dealing with the stories around. The Colorado and the Mississippi are more important than the Euphrates River. It's more important than the Euphrates. The Moses West Foundation in America wanted to deal with water shortage in an innovative way. And they wanted to deal with the water shortage with practical and applicable means of generating water when water became scarce. Moses West Foundation is a Black man that deals with water. There are some Indians and Native Americans and folks who have already been paid reparations, have casinos, so many other things. They are recognized and legitimate, and there are billions more being cut right now. But you still think we need to study Black people. Oh, we just need a museum where I can tell you this piece of paper belonged to one of my great uncles. Oh, there was the Age of Heroes. It also says it was myth. There was the difference between what's real and what they're putting out. And it will turn us into an angry quack. Thank you so much. Happy birthday. Shout out to Doc Jenkins. Please look at the video. It's quite disturbing. Yes, I will, and I appreciate it. Get that Helena Troy shit off my screen. When they want to diss the Black Boule, I feel a certain way. Yes, there are Black families that made the decision a long time ago that they were not going to be broke in America. They were not going to be broke wherever the hell they lived, whether it was Chicago or North Carolina, whether it was in New Orleans. In essence, it didn't matter where they lived in California, the East or the West. It didn't matter if their great-granddaddy identified as Cuban or Dominican or Jamaican. It didn't matter. To them, they knew that they were not going to be broke. They understood civil rights as well as, and in today's society, we're having a conversation where the woman can be freely blamed, and I beg to differ. If we're talking about what men should do, there's plenty more. You post the link. So how do I grab the link? Oh, okay. So I got to go to the other screen to grab the link most likely. Let me try that. Hey.
Oh man, so beware of all handouts from shady people. Why am I saying that? Oh, we gonna get to it. We gonna get to it. Just remember that point. Beware of all handouts from shady people. So y'all read the title, man. A Black farmer is having his farm legally stolen from him by millionaire squatters. Yeah. So this is Derek Williams of Newborn, Georgia. and he's been in a year-long battle to save his farm from squatters that's being aided by alleged corrupt local judges. Now, this story is bizarre. Some things I can't even tell you, and I gotta just point you in a certain direction that you can get the rest of the stories from that place over there. But what I can tell you is that Derek has 100% ownership of his farm, his business, and his home. The deed for this home is in Derek's name. But still, this family full of Karens has figured out a way to legally steal his farm, his home, his animals right from under this man's feet, dog. Quite frankly, they're the richest squatters that you ever gonna see in your damn life. This story is so complex, so I'm going to use the help from Derek and a TikToker by the name of Nerdy Pink Panda to help break this whole thing down for me. So I'm going to put their information.
Morning Blend, a fair use mess. One of my managing mods has recommended this stream. It looks like Yelm Stacy. Yeah, Stacy. Black farmers' home and animals were legally taken by millionaire squatters. This channel is already big, 55.5K subscribers. So I know he's going to get a notification that I used it. So that being said, appreciate my mod for actually recommending this. It does go to the heart of people being good at writing it down. All the information that they just showed on the screen, the real receipts. I got to watch this on my own time because I want to know the details. Oh, I could use that one. Hold on. Let's hit them with that one. Let me see if I can do it. So I came to this one. If I go to this one, this is from my other mod who says it's always strange when she hears it. Let's review it. She says it's quite disturbing though. So now I don't know. So we have one in the other end which says, if it's quite disturbing, do we watch it anyway? Because you know me, I'm already in my angry quack. I might need 5 days. But from that, let me see. Brand. Did I save it? Uh-oh. Here we go. Hey, Queen, get ready. Prepare yourself. Or take a break, Queen. Hold on. Here you go.
Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research.
All right. Hopefully he's not too mad. Hey, bruh, the stream needs a little bit in a sense. This message that you're delivering right now, yeah, Stacy, and whoever it is that helped, yeah, Stacy, get together this content. So we're going to review just a bit of it.
This story is so complex, so I'm going to use the help from Derek and a TikToker by the name of Nerdy Pink Panda to help break this whole thing down for me. So I'm going to put their information in the comment section. Well, I'm sorry, the description below for sure is going to be in there, so you can go ahead and see more information to continue following this story because it's constantly developing. As I'm saying this right now, more shit happening in this story, though. So simply, I'm doing as the brother wishes and helping spread his story out with my platform. So here goes Nerdy Pink Panda breaking down what's going on in this story.
So what led up to this Karen from hell coming after a black man in his own home? Well, last night I spent hours researching, interviewing, and essentially teaching myself Georgia estate law. And here's how it happened. Derek Williamson did ministry work through his church in Conyers, Georgia. And in 2021, Janet Hardy here approached Derek telling him that she had inherited a large amount of money from her parents' estate and that God told her that she was to put it back in the church through his ministry. They both put in money together to buy this property. Granted, her contribution was larger. And then together they took out a mortgage for the sum of the rest of the property. Now, Janet Hardy was going to continue to pay the mortgage, but in July of 2021, she did sign over the entire property to Derek's business. Here's both their signatures and an official notary. Derek is also the only stockholder of the company. Here's the corporate division officially filed with the Secretary of State. Jordan Hardy here unexpectedly became pregnant, and she also was dealing with substance abuse problems. Her father, open mic night Charlie Chaplin here, told Jordan that she wasn't allowed to terminate the pregnancy, and Jordan threatened to unalive herself. Derek, who was very close with the family at the time, offered to let them all move into the spare bedrooms on the property so that he could help minister and be a friend to Jordan in this time of need. And then they could work the land and volunteer where they can, et cetera, et cetera. One thing you might want to know before we get into the next part of this, though, is that James, aka Jay Hardy, is actually a millionaire. He's a landlord who owns many properties. So they didn't need this place. In exchange for this arrangement, Janet said that she would take on the full mortgage and the utilities for this arrangement. Now, in April of 2022, things started to go sideways, and we have a video to accompany this.
That is none of your stuff.
Get out of my way. Get out of my way and get away from me. Get out of my way and get away from me. She told you. Get out of my way and get away from me. Get out. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Ah, snap. I'm going to call off. Hey, I'm recording all this. Move out of my way. Get out of my way. I'm calling law enforcement now. I'm calling law enforcement against you all now.
Unsurprisingly, it wasn't long until the Hardys started gaslighting Derek into thinking he owed them. They felt entitled to business decisions. They felt like the home was theirs and he was just living in it. Derek was trying to retrieve business documents out of that drawer there, but they were trying to make it sound like it was their furniture and he wasn't allowed in it. In the aftermath of that incident, Claire Hardy, in another video, goes on a rant about how Derek is a monster and he should be so thankful and grateful about what her mom has done for him and good luck finding another place to live. All while in the background, Jay Hardy is watching Sean Hannity, which told me everything I need to know about this family. Unshockingly, when Derek called the police for help, they didn't. In fact, the opposite. Now, after this incident with the Hardys, Derek tried to file a stay-away order, but in court, the women all said that Derek was the one who attacked them. Even though there was video, who do you think the judge believed? Just keep in mind in this video that Derek was recording, so James turned off the lights. And this is what happens when Derek tried to turn them back on.
Get away from me. Get away from me. Quit hitting me. Get away from me. Get away from me. Stop. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me.
You hit me. You hurt me.
What the fuck was this, James?
The level of restraint that this young man is showing deserves a goddamn medicals. Boy, y'all seen how that old man was faking a phone? Bro, we see you. We see you. No wonder the daughter knows how to play victim like that is from a goddamn father.
What the fuck was this? Either commit to the bit or actually try to frame the guy. And while James did get arrested for simple battery that night, unfortunately so did Derek, who's never been arrested before in his life. Yep, that's right. They believed the word of the pale-faced, prominent, rich folks. The judge actually flipped the order, and Derek was forced to leave his home. But let's talk about Janet for a minute. In 2018, Janet Hardy tried to take her brother to court to challenge their parents' will. So I don't know a lot about a state will off the bat, so I had to do a lot of research on this topic in order to kind of figure out what was going on. So Janet's parents lived in their...
Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. Stalking, Judge Connie Holt. So they go into a segment. They go into a segment on Derek, go into a segment on the judge, and then a long, drawn-out stalking conclusion. They destroyed his company, his animal farm off the land illegally, the last of the animals. Sheesh. Yeah, I'm going to review the rest of that. Appreciate the share. It's 12, man. Do we have another YouTuber who's ready to go live? This 3-hour morning blend. Angry Quack. Some of y'all said y'all wanted it, so you got your segments in there. This Cabrini way of thinking. Cabrini, to me, is where you hear black men, I'll just be brief frank. You hear black men who actually are saying they want the amenities provided to white people. And from their perspective, they're not saying black men should be building those. They're not arguing for the land. They're not saying we are the property developers. We are the people, like in Derek's case, he said we had these lands and we have all, and somebody else came in and said, well, I have paperwork. And in that case, I don't even see us being all the way there yet. For me, I know that argument is being now that there are places to live. Oh shit, hold on, we got another share on the board. Let me get that. Hold on. Oh, he's live? Good. So I'm gonna throw two. Appreciate you. I am my grandmother's rebellion. It's been a good conversation for me anyway. I had to get this shit out. Talked about a lot. I'm black. I'm black first. You know me. I don't think I got too many enemies though. I think I have a lot of people who may not like my decisions on who I fuck with, and that's their opinion. As long as they rocking with Cabrini Green understandings, that's their right too. But at some point, the conversation will evolve. Those who know, yeah, we got work to do. Thank y'all for rocking with me. I'm B1 Brother Moses. That's all I got, and I'm out.